like to welcome everybody back to BUFORD PUSSER, The Other Story. This week we're going to talk about something rather serious, cults. Now, a lot of people are going to be upset by this video because I think that the Pusser legend has created a Pusser cult. There's a lot of Facebook pages, social media pages out there where people are so involved in this story. And most of what they know is from the movie Walking Tall or its sequels, that they have no idea what the real story is, but yet they are dead set that what they saw in those movies is true. Now, I work from a different element. I like to go out, interview the people that actually live part of the real story. I like to find documents, photographs, whatever I can to get down to the brass tacks. So while they're working with the legend and with fictional movies, I'm trying to work with facts and evidence. What gets me about some of these folks, for instance, that operate media pages that's got thousands or tens of thousands of people on there, they will not let you join unless you agree with everything they say. They won't allow you to stay if you ask the wrong questions. And to me, that is a cult. Now, you have to ask yourself, what is a cult? Well, it's defined basically as a devotion to a person, an idea, a particular subject, a movement that is so great that they just can't see the forest for the trees. And that's the way that I see a lot of these media pages. And the same way with a lot of the videos that are out there. The same people that are making a lot of these videos have not done an ounce of research. They've just watched the other videos that are out there or what they saw in the movies, and they'll make something that they believe to be true because they saw it in a movie. Now, folks, when they refuse to change their mind, whenever they're presented with the facts, that is a cult. Now, there's a lot of people over in Western Tennessee that are so deeply seated in this Pusser cult. They're at the museum. They still tell people that Buford was killed by an organized crime syndicate rather than admit that he died a drunk driver. You have people that consider themselves historians that will tell you that if you didn't live there, you have no idea what it was like. And the same people that are telling you this weren't even born or were small children when all this happened. But yet they know. You ask them, well, how do you know that what you're saying is the facts? Did you ever double date with Buford when he went out and played around on Pauline? Did you ever go with him when he went to make his pickups of payoffs that all these clubs, moonshiners, bootleggers, so on were giving him? And they won't answer those questions. Why? Because they can't. That is the true makings of a cult. The movie Walking Tall and its sequels were just that, movies. They were there for entertainment. The captions at the beginning of Walking Tall said that the movie was based on certain events in Buford's life. It was in the trailers that alleged it was a true story, but it wasn't. There was very little that actually happened to Buford as they showed in the movies. Now, it's not unusual. There's a lot of cult movies out there, just like Walking Tall. At about the same time, there was a movie called Billy Jack. It was very popular, and it was basically a cult movie. It was about a young man that returned from Vietnam. He was special forces, had training in martial arts, and he was protecting the students of a Navajo school because he was half Navajo. Now, none of that really happened, but it was a huge cult movie. There's others, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's another cult movie that is based on true events. While they called it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Actually, Ed Gein, I believe is how you pronounce his name, was a real person in Wisconsin who was a murderer, suspected serial killer, and a body snatcher who would exhume bodies illegally, recover the bodies, and make keepsakes out of the bones and the flesh of these dead people. Texas Chainsaw Massacre just kind of rebranded the whole thing, made a totally fictional movie out of it, and there you have that. You've also had a lot of other cult type movies. Waco, Rules of Engagement, that was had a lot to do with David Koresh and the cult that was down in Waco at Mount Carmel Center. You know, they had a 51-day siege that ended with the loss of 86 lives. And yet, there are a lot of people that believe everything they saw in the movie was exactly the way it happened, and it wasn't. They also had Gorilla, the taking of Patty Hearst. Now, this was based on a true story because she was indeed kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army back in 1974, and she was held for 19 months. She was basically brainwashed and by her captors, and she actually participated in robbing a bank with them. That indicated that she was under their control through like the Stockholm syndrome, where somebody becomes so dependent on their captors after a while that they begin to look at them as protectors. There's a lot of movies out there that people believe that in everything that they saw in the movies. And Walking Tall is one of them. And it is, to me, one of the worst because they did bill it in the trailers as being a true story. It came out in print that it was a true story, but the captions in the movie itself said it was, well, based on certain events. And those were far and few between. They had timelines screwed up. They had the state line screwed up. For instance, they had Buford going to trial in McNairy County after he robbed the Lucky Spot, which actually the Plantation Club, that was the club that he robbed, was actually in Mississippi. They had this huge state line syndicate when during his time as sheriff, there was only two people, Louise Hathcock and Towhead White, and they were in control of things for a total of 17 months. I mean, Buford was elected in 1964. Towhead White went to prison just a few months after he was arrested by Tishomingo Sheriff James Bishop. Then there was Louise Hathcock, and Buford shot and killed her in an extremely questionable shooting in February of 1966. But yet the movie has you believing that this went on and on and on, and it didn't. And all these people over there will tell you that you have no idea. You don't have a clue. You weren't here. You didn't live it. You aren't aware of what actually happened. Well, then I turn around and ask them, well, name just a single place at the state line that Buford actually closed down, and they can't. I'll ask them, well, name a state liner that he sent to prison, and they can't do that. They can't seem to examine the events that actually took place and realize that it was just a movie that was made for entertainment that was loosely based on certain events.
Be sure and subscribe and hit that bell so that you'll get notifications of new videos when they're released.
You know, I find it amazing that the people on these social media pages and the ones that make YouTube videos and TikTok videos that believe in Buford Pusser, there was no Buell Jaggers, no Augie McCullough, no Callie Hacker, no John Witter. There wasn't a Lucky Spot. Pine Ridge Club wasn't even in McNairy County like it showed in the movie. Now, what you had was a motel and restaurant at the state line, along with another club, the White Iris. And somehow all these experts from that area can't get their facts straight. And they're trying to convince people that I'm the one that's wrong. Well, do a little research for yourself if you don't believe me. Look for John Witter and see what you find. There was a towhead white. Look for Callie Hacker and see if she was an actual person. Now, there was a Louise Hathcock, but their stories weren't the same. Somehow, I just feel like that in some cases, they do this intentionally because they feel like it benefits McNairy County to have this legend ongoing. Well, it's been a long time since that there was a lot of tourism that was brought in by the Pusser legend. The generation of today doesn't even know who Buford Pusser was. We have the situation where the TBI has recently reopened the investigation into the death of Pauline Pusser. And from what I can tell, it appears, as I've always said, that Buford was involved in her death. Don't know if he was the guy that actually pulled the trigger or if he had an accomplice do it or what the circumstances were, but the story that he told was not the truth. And that's the disturbing part, is that these people are trying to tell you that it was.
If you want to learn the real story of Buford Pusser, you need to get my book, Buford Pusser, The Other Story. It is full of facts and information that you don't get anywhere else that I know of. It's the story as told by the people who live their own parts in the real tale. It's full of photographs, documents, lots of interesting things to see, and it pretty well outlines everything from Buford's birth up until the time of his death, and even after that, because the family became embroiled in a lot of lawsuits over his legacy. So, again, Buford Pusser, The Other Story. It's available at both Amazon.com and eBay.
Do some actual research for yourself. Look at things. Do as I have done. Go through the FBI files. Go through some county records. Go through photographs. Try to find what few remaining people are left that know the real story, or at least they're parts of it. There are a few out there that still exist that live their own portion of that story. And when you get over there, you'll find that a lot of people will tell you that they do not like the Pusser legend. They didn't believe that Buford was a good sheriff. I would suggest to the county fathers over there that if you want the Pusser legend to have a beneficial effect on your economy, that you remarket Buford's story, this time telling the truth about Buford. Of course, he did some good things while he was sheriff. Every sheriff does that wants to get reelected. If you don't do your job, do some of it properly, nobody's going to vote for you again. So obviously, Buford did some good. However, this drive to overlook all the bad things he did, accepting payoffs, all the womanizing, being a bully, abusing the power of his badge, you need to stop overlooking all that and just remarket his story as being one like that of Wyatt Earp, and just admit that Buford walked down both sides of the law. He crossed a line a lot of times. You look at the way that Louise Hathcock was killed, you have to wonder if that was murder. You look at Russ Hamilton the same way. Did he have to kill Russ Hamilton? Look at the death of Towhead White. Who was it killed him? I'm not saying that Buford did all of those things, but it's something that you have to consider, because right now, the story that's being peddled over there about Buford being this big legend isn't true. I think it would behoove the county to actually remarket it and say, hey, look, Buford got a lot of fame back in the 70s from the movie Walking Tall. But, we've decided that the story wasn't exactly right. And I think a lot of people would return to McNairy County to see things for themselves. You've got a jail up there that gets almost no visitors any longer. I know that there's a lot of people that don't even know that they can have access to the jail. They can go see where Buford housed his prisoners and how that they were kept. The ambush sites, to me, those are not being properly marketed. There's a way to get tourism back in that will affect the economy in a good way. There's restaurants over there that would benefit. There's motels over there that would benefit. But you've got to get out of this mindset of being a cult and saying that Buford was the ultimate hero. He just absolutely was not. I just felt like it was important to make everybody aware that this legend is so much of a cult more than anything else. Hardly any of what you saw in Walking Tall or read in most of the books about Buford is true. Again, do a little research. Check newspaper clippings from the day, compare them to FBI reports, take a look at photos. I am no expert, but I can look at a lot of the photos that are out there, the blood spatter on Buford's car, and see that the story that Buford told about the ambush is not true. I've gone down through that path trying to recreate the ambush as Buford described it, which again, here's another issue. That was at 4:45 in the morning, not in daylight like it was shown in Walking Tall. So all these people that are saying that the Pusser legend is true have no clue. Even the ones that are over there and consider themselves to be historians on the subject, they don't know. And you have adults over there that know better that are telling you that that was an absolute true story. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this story, be sure and subscribe, like, comment, and be sure and get notifications so that you'll know when new episodes are out. I try to put one out every Thursday and every Saturday. So, folks, just remember until next time, truth has no agenda. And thanks for watching.